Om. Om Sahana Vavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Saha Viryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shante Shante Shante. Vakratunda Mahakaya Suryakoti Samaprabha Nirvignam Kurume Deva Sarvakaryeshu Sarvada. Saraswati Namastubhyam Varade Kamarupini Vidyarambham Karishyami Siddhir Bhavatu Me Sada. Samasta Jana Kalyane Niratam Karunamayam Namami Chinmayam Devam Satgurum Brahma Vidvaram Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangum Langhayate Girim Yatripatamaham Vande Paramananda Madhavam. Paramananda Madhavam. Okay, let us read chapter 2, starting from verse 1, and let us read until verse number 13. So we will read this together. So as I said, in the beginning of every class, we will chant maybe 10 verses or so that we can all get used to hearing these verses in our minds. Om Shri Paramatmane Namaha. अथ द्वितीयो अध्यायः सांख्ययोगः. Start from verse 1. तं तथा कृपयाविष्टम् अश्रुपूर्णाकुलेक्षणम् विषीदन्तमिदं वाक्यम् उवाच मधुसूदनः. श्रीभगवानुवाच कुतस्त्वाकश्मलमिदं विषमे समुपस्थितम् अनार्यजुष्टमस्वर्ग्यम् अकीर्तिकरमर्जुन. क्लैब्यं मास्मगमः पार्थ नैतत्त्वय्युपपद्यते क्षुद्रं हृदय दौर्बल्यं त्यक्त्वोत्तिष्ठ परन्तप. अर्जुन उवाच कथं भीष्ममहं संख्ये द्रोणं च मधुसूदन इषुभिः प्रतियोत्स्यामि पूजार्हा वरिसूदन. गुरून् हत्वा हि महानुभावान् श्रेयो भोक्तुं भैक्षमपीह लोके हत्वार्थकामांस्तु गुरूनिहैव भुञ्जीय भोगान् रुधिरप्रदिग्धान् न चैतद्विद्मः कतरन्नो गरीयः यद्वा जयेम यदि वा नो जयेयुः यानेव हत्वा न जिजीविषामः तेव स्थिताः प्रमुखे धार्तराष्ट्राः. कार्पण्यदोषोपहतः स्वभावः पृच्छामि त्वां धर्मसम्मूढचेताः यच्छ्रेयस्या निश्चितं ब्रूहि तन्मे शिष्यस्तेऽहं शाधि मां त्वां प्रपन्नम् न हि प्रपश्यामि ममापनुद्यात् यच्छोकमुच्छोषणमिन्द्रियाणाम् अवाप्य भूमावसपत्नं वृद्धं राज्यं सुराणामपि चाधिपत्यम् सञ्जय उवाच एवमुक्त्वा हृषीकेशं गुडाकेशः परन्तपः न योत्स्य इति गोविन्दम् उक्त्वा तूष्णीं बभूवः तमुवाच ऋषिकेशः प्रहसन्निव भारत
We can't hear.
Sorry.
You're on mute.
Okay. Did I just get on mute?
You're okay now.
Okay.
Now you're okay. You muted yourself.
You
Okay,
muted
okay, I'm
yourself.
sorry.
From 9, we couldn't hear you.
From 9. Okay. Maybe somebody muted me, but I didn't do anything. Okay. From 9. So I will chant 9 again. Is that okay? Okay. I'll chant 9 again. Sanjaya Uvacha Evamukva Hrishikesham Gudakeshah Parantapaha Nayotsya iti govindam. 1 minute. Here. Nayotsya iti govindam uktva tushnim babhuvaha tamuvacha rishikeshaha prahasanniva bharata senayorubhayormadhye vishidantamidam vachaha Shri Bhagavanuvacha Ashochananvashocastvam Prajnavadanscha bhashase Gatasunagatasuncha Nanushocanti panditaha Natvevaham jatunasam Natvam neme janadhipaha न चैव न भविष्यामः सर्वे वयमतः परम् देहिनोऽस्मिन् यथा देहे कौमारं यौवनं जरा तथा देहान्तरप्राप्तिः धीरस्तत्र न मुह्यते. This message of the Bhagavad Gita is most relevant today, here, now. Last week, we saw verses 2.11 to 2.13. We read 2.14 a little bit, but we really focused on these 3 verses. What did Bhagavan Krishna say in these 3 verses? He told Arjuna that the wise never grieve. The wise do not grieve. If you are a pandit, a pandita means the one who has Atma Vidya, the one who has the knowledge of the self, then you should not grieve. Why is Bhagavan Krishna saying this? Or why is he speaking from this standpoint? Arjuna's problem was not death. Arjuna's problem was delusion. Because death happens all the time. And he had seen death before. But it wasn't a cause for his sorrow. What was the cause for his sorrow is my gurus, my people, my kith and kin are dying or will die. And that my is called delusion. I belong to you, you belong to me. That is delusion. That we are somebody else's, that we belong to someone, and somebody is my mother, my father, my brother, my sister, my husband, my wife. This is delusion. Why is it delusion? Because my presupposes that there's an I. I can only have a my if there's an I. And this delusion is born from ignorance that I am this body. As long as I am some body, then there is every body. So this delusion is born from ignorance. I think that I'm this body. I think that I'm this mind, this intellect, this individuality. And because I think that I am this, I take things to be mine. Things that are related to this body, I say it's mine. So my parent, my child, my relatives, I take it to be mine. And this was Arjuna's problem. His problem was sorrow. The sorrow was because of delusion, and the delusion was caused by ignorance. If we take it in the language of the Gita, his problem was shoka, which was because of moha, delusion. And this delusion was caused by ignorance. And therefore, Bhagavan Krishna wanted to give him knowledge, because his root problem was ignorance. And he says, Arjuna, you are grieving for those who should not be grieved for. Ashochan anvashocastvam. You shouldn't grieve for these people because they are not the body, they're not the mind, they're not the intellect, they're not the individuality. And therefore, the Pandit, the one who has the knowledge of the self, does not grieve for the one who has gone, or for the ones who have gone, or for the ones who are going. Gatasun agatasuncha na anushochanti panditaha. Now, when we read this verse, that the wise do not grieve, sometimes we feel like the wise people could be like rocks, could be like stones, that they have no such emotions. What, when this world is going through so much that the wise person doesn't do anything, they just stand still? On the contrary, the wise person is the most compassionate, most understanding, most loving, and will give most of themselves. You see, when there is death in families, what normally happens is there are several kinds of personalities that are there. One is the ones who break down. They're the ones who really, really break down because it is so tragic for them. Then they don't know how to handle it. And so they're the ones that really need attention. So one has to take care of everything in the matter of that death and also of that person or of those people who break down because they're not able to take it. They're not able to hold it together. They are broken inside. And this is naturally understandable because we all have gone through some form or the other of this particular phase. There are some people who don't break down, but inside they're breaking. Outside, they're trying to show that they're strong and nothing is, breaking them. Nothing is disturbing them because they feel that they have to show that they're strong. They feel they have to be the strong one because everyone around them is breaking down. So who will be strong? So they, on the outside, appear to be strong, but inside they are breaking. And it will just be a matter of time until they really break down because they are broken. So the first type of person is broken on the outside and broken on the inside. The second type of person is showing that he or she is not broken on the outside, but completely broken on the inside. Now, the wise person is not broken, is absolutely not broken. Wise person doesn't grieve means that wise person is not broken. They're not shaken up by it. They're not moved by it because they understand what the self is and who the self is. So inside, they are so centered, they are so firm, and they are unshakable. Which means what? That wise person can hold everybody. That person, that wise person can be the pillar for that entire family. And anybody who's breaking down, anybody who's going through things, that wise person can be there. They can be there to show that love, that care, that affection, because they're not busy taking care about themselves or their emotions or dealing with any such issues. They are completely soaked in this knowledge and they know it. Therefore, not an ounce of their self-effort is to deal with what's in their mind. Every single bit of their effort is to care for everybody else's mind. So, na anushochanti panditaha doesn't mean that this wise person is like a rock, still and not doing anything. On the contrary, this wise person is like a rock, which is the foundation of everybody else. And therefore, this is the state that we all aim to strive for, where one can be so centered, so grounded, that their whole life, their whole thought, deed, and action, words, can be for the service of others. This is a pandita. So a wise person doesn't grieve, doesn't mean that a wise person doesn't show emotion. It means a wise person is not shaken by emotion. They're not shaken by emotion because it doesn't belong to them, but they show whatever is required to that particular moment at that particular place. Now, Bhagavan Krishna says, why, we might wonder, why should one not grieve for the self? So we saw in verse number 12, Bhagavan Krishna establishes the eternality, or what we call nityatvam, of the self. The self is always there. There was never a time where the self was not there. There's never a time where the self will not be there. And there's never a time where the self is not there. The self is there. And so there's no need to grieve because Atma doesn't go anywhere. Atma is always there. It's an awareness. So what are we grieving over? Then if somebody asks, why do you say that Atma is eternal? Why do you say that Atma is always there? Because in verse number 13, it says, Atma is that which is changeless. Dehi nosmin yatha dehi. Dehi, that Atma, which appears to have a body, deha. In that, what happens is the body goes through so many changes, extreme amount of changes. We talked about the 6 modifications, where asti, first it is like a fetus. Jayate, the body is then born. Varidhate, then the body grows. It grows. Then viparinamate, the body matures. Apakshiyate, the body decays. And vinashyati, the body gets destroyed. And so the body goes through so many changes. But in and throughout the changes of the body, wasn't there the changeless self? Did the birth came. Birth is a state. Birth came and birth died. The state of birth died. Youth came and youth died. Adulthood came and adulthood died. Now the states are, they are being born, they're dying. They're being born, they are dying. The birth and death of a state, is that the birth and death of me? When my babyhood died, did I die? When my youthhood died, did I die? When my adulthood will die, will I die? It won't die. I won't die. The birth and death of a state, it will come and go, but nothing will happen to Atma. The birth and death of a state is not the birth and death of Atma. And therefore, Atma is that which is always there. And we experience this all the time. Aren't you and I that same little girl or boy who was born in our parents' arms? And we are that same little girl and boy who went to school with our books and big bags the first day. We're that same young boy and girl who went through teenage years, where maybe some people bunked school because they didn't want to go and they fought with everybody in the house. And we were that same boy and girl, that same young man and woman in adulthood. The ones who got married and your sari and those pictures are there in your houses. You were that same person. Means you're that same Atma. Then that picture in that sari and that kurta in your wall, now the body is completely different. Bigger, everybody gets bigger after marriage, everybody gets older. This is different, completely different. So we also have all those pictures in our houses. All of those memories are kept. The bodies you can see in your photo album, you keep flipping through it. It's all changing. But you are the one present in every picture. What is that? What is that? That is called Atma, or the self. So whether the body is here or not, it's immaterial. The self is there. In tatra dehantara prapti, tatha dehantara prapti. Even when that body, there's another body, even when this jiva takes up another body, that Atma is still the same, changeless. So nothing happens to Atma. So the train of thought is, Arjuna is deluded because of ignorance. Lord Krishna gives him knowledge and says, the wise do not grieve. And the wise do not grieve. Why? Because we are Atma. Wise is Atma. We are all Atma, means I'm saying there's only one Atma, but from the body standpoint, there's manyness, but there's only one Atma. We are Atma, that Atma is eternal. Why is it eternal? It's changeless. It doesn't change throughout any of the changes. Now, what if somebody gets this knowledge but doesn't really get it? What if somebody is getting it but just trying to deal with the world right now? Maybe this is there, but it's not exactly sinking in. What if someone is just there who's going through so many ups and downs in life? What to say about them, Bhagavan Krishna? What to say to them? And so he starts with this verse now, verse 14. So I will chant and then you can repeat. Okay. Matra sparshastu kaunteya shitoshna sukha dukkadaha agama payino anityaha Tan stitikshasva Bharata. Okay. Matra sparshastu kaunteya shitoshna sukha dukkadaha agamapayino anityaha tan stitikshasva Bharata. Matra. Matra here means the senses. Matra. Matra, the sense organs, and the sense, it can mean sense organs, it can mean sense objects. So what we're trying to say is, sparsha means the contact. Matra sparshastu, when we say matra sparsha, we mean the contact of the sense organs with the sense objects. Okay? So matra sparsha, contact of the sense objects, sense organs with the sense objects. Matra sparshastu kaunteya shitoshna sukha dukkadaha. Shita, cold, ushna, heat, sukha, joy, dukkha, sorrow, daha means they're the giver of all of these pairs of opposites. Agama, they come. Apayanaha, they go. And anityaha, and they are anitya, they are temporary. Therefore, Tan stitikshasva Bharata. Therefore, O Bharata or Arjuna, titikshasva, endure them. So contacts of senses with objects, O son of Kunti, which cause heat and cold, pleasure and pain, have a beginning and an end. They are impermanent. Endure them bravely, O descendant of Bharata. So here, very beautifully, while taking up this verse, Bhagavan Krishna uses two terms for Arjuna. The first one is Kaunteya. Kaunteya means the son of Kunti. And he uses this because Mother Kunti had endurance. Titiksha means endurance, forbearance. This is what Kunti Devi had. Throughout her life, we saw how when she was just, when she was very young, newly married, what happened is now she had to move from the kingdom to the forest because of Pandu's curse. I don't know if you remember that he shot the deers. And then she bore sons. And when her sons were growing up, Pandu passed away. And Madri also left. So she had to raise 5 children. Then she brought those children to Hastinapur. And in Hastinapur, the Pandavas didn't have an easy time. You remember the stories of the poisoning of Bhima and the palace of wax. She was there in that palace of wax, which they tried to set fire. She lived with them in the forest for some time. Then she goes back to Hastinapur and she stays with them in Indraprastha. And then what happens is her children are sent to exile and she has to stay there without them. So her life was not easy. She had to go through so many ups and downs, but she stayed strong. And to raise 5 young boys, not easy. To keep them together, to keep them united, that is also very difficult. So if anybody has patience, forbearance, endurance, a mother has that maximum capacity. And a father also. For the children to grow, to bloom, to blossom, what and all they have to go through. It's a lot. And that is why, yesterday was Mother's Day. So I was reflecting on all of our mothers. One is all of the people who are like mothers to us, which is all of you. And then all of the Mother Earth, how much titiksha she has, how much forbearance she has for all of the nonsense that we do. Bhagavad Gita is also our mother, because in the beginning it says she's our mother, Amba. And how much endurance she has. She keeps going and going and going. Even if we don't get it, she keeps going and going and going. She's not giving up on us. right? Guru is also mother. Oh, all of them have so much titiksha, so much forbearance. So he's trying to remind Arjuna, listen, you are the son of Kunti. Not only are you the son of Kunti, you are Bharata. You belong to the great land of Bharat. And now we know, or we're seeing how much titiksha Bharat Mata has. Whatever happens, Bharat Mata will endure. It can. Because it's Bharat Mata. It is our mother. That is called titiksha. That ability to endure. And Arjuna, you being the son of Mother Kunti, you being from this great land of Bharat, which has already endured so many things, you can endure. And he says, listen, Arjuna, whatever we experience in life, it doesn't depend on the objects. It's matra sparsha. Depends on the contact with the object. We are not experiencing the object. We are experiencing the contact with the object. So you and I can actually decide how we should view something. For example, for some people, cold is very good. They love the cold weather. Love the cold weather, and they go skiing and snowboarding and all of that. For some people, they don't like the cold weather at all. For some people, the heat is very nice because they like to be outside. They like to be in the beach, in the sun. For some people, they don't like heat at all. So it's not that particular object that's causing it. It is the contact with the object. Everybody who's taken the second vaccine knows this, right? It's not the second vaccine. It depends on who takes it. Some bodies, nothing happens. Some bodies, it takes 2-3 days to recover. Some bodies, there's chills and there's aches all over. So it is not the vaccine, it's the contact with it. That matra sparsha. That matra sparsha, our contact with the world is capable of giving us heat and cold, is capable of giving us joy and sorrow, is capable of giving us all of these things. But don't get so caught up in that. Whenever you and I contact the world, duality, these dualities or dvandvas will come. Joy and sorrow will come. It is not the son or daughter that is an issue. The contact with the son or daughter, then dualities will come. Sometimes there's joy, sometimes there's sorrow, right? Contact with anybody, sometimes there's joy, sometimes there's sorrow. We cannot avoid it. Anybody we contact, anything we contact, it will either give us joy or sorrow. It depends on the mood of our mind. So he says, when all of these things happen, they are just know that they will come and they will go. All of these experiences in life, however difficult it may appear to be, or some people don't want to wear a mask because it's so suffocating. Titiksha, just bear it. Just bear it. It is anitya. It will go. It is not like this thing will stay forever. Things will come. Things will go. They are temporary. So Bhagavan Krishna says, just bear it. Just bear it. Dans titikshasva bharata. Now a little bit more about this titiksha. In Viveka Chudamani, there is a very beautiful explanation of titiksha. Titiksha means to bear it, to endure it, right? But how? How to endure? That is given in this verse in Viveka Chudamani. And it says, Sahanam sarva dukkhanam apratikara purvakam chinta vilaparahitam satitiksha nigadyate. It says how to practice this titiksha. This titiksha, when I'm contacting some objects, some people, some experiences, and I'm getting a lot of sorrow from it. I'm getting a lot of unease, discomfort. How to endure? Apratikara. Apratikara and vilapa and chinta rahita. Apratikara means from the body level without sweating the small stuff. And I'll give you examples so you understand. First, the body level, don't sweat the small stuff. The speech level, without complaining. The mind level, without worrying. This is how to endure. So from the body level, a very simple example I will give you. You know, when we go to retreats and ashrams, I'm sure many of you have been to some ashram for a retreat or something. And what happens is you have to have a roommate. And that roommate you cannot choose, right? Titiksha, number one, you can't choose your roommate. Now, in that roommate, there's 2 or 3 beds, okay? And then there's always somebody who wants very strong fan, somebody who wants very little fan. Because they're from different parts of Bharat. Now, what do you do? Different parts of the world. Somebody will want the room very cold. Somebody will want the room not so cold because they're not so used to this. Now, instead of going on fighting, should we have it cold? Should we have it not cold? Should we have it cold? Should we have it not cold? Just endure it. If it's too cold, put on a blanket. If it's, if it's too warm, then take off your sweater. That's all, right? But imagine if the whole time you're just thinking about the fan is too strong, the fan is too weak. All your time and energy will go only in that. So, apratikara purvakam, from the body level, don't sweat the small stuff. Just go through it. It's okay. The second, from the speech level, without complaining. Because when we complain, we magnify things. We make it bigger than it actually is. Guruji gives a very, very beautiful example. He says, if it's hot, okay, you can say it's hot, but you don't have to keep saying, it's really hot, I don't know what to do, I don't understand why it's so hot, I can't take this weather. We're magnifying everything. Then all of the attention is going in that and that alone. It's a waste of time. Then some of us worry, oh, what's going to happen? I don't know what we will do in September. How will this be? How will this work out? Whole time is spent on worry. So titiksha is not enduring with worry and enduring with complaint and enduring with trying to fix everything around us. Titiksha is endurance without trying to fix everything unnecessarily, without complaining, without worrying, and just knowing that everything that's coming to me is part of my karma. And remember, we talked about it, that karma is not only individual, but it's total karma. So whatever has to come, let it come. Endure it. But does it mean that I have to be sad inside? No, take it as a sadhana. This may be an opportunity for me to grow. So let me grow through it. Not go through it, but let me grow through it. Let me grow through it. Let me accept it. I have to. If this has to happen, let me grow through it. This is what Bhagavan Krishna tells Arjuna. If we do not have this quality of titiksha, as I mentioned, so much of our mental energy and time will go into trying to fix everything. And most of the time, we don't have control of what that everything is. So therefore, matra sparshastu, that contact with the sense organs, with the sense objects, that contact is capable of giving us cold, heat, joy, and sorrow. Yes, when that contact is giving us discomfort and sadness, what do? Know that that contact it's coming and it's going to go. It's temporary, and bear it. But bear it with the right attitude. And you can, because you are the son of Kunti Devi and you are the son of Bharat. Therefore, O Arjuna, titikshasva. Now the question could could be, what happens if somebody has this quality of titiksha? If somebody, let's say, why should a seeker cultivate this quality? I mean, we spoke about it a little bit, but Lord Krishna says something even deeper. He says on verse number 15, Yam hina vyatayantyete purusham purusharshabha samadukha sukham dhiram somritatvaya kalpate. Yam hina vyatayantyete purusham purusharshabha samadukha sukham dhiram somritatvaya kalpate. So therefore, he says, now, why should we have titiksha? Why should we have titiksha? Because he says here, O Purusharshabha, you are the best of the Purushas. What happens is, ete here means that joy, sorrow, heat, cold, all of those things, ete, yam samadukha sukham dhiram purusham na vyatayanti saha amritatvaya kalpate. Means all of these joys, sorrows, all of these things, the one who is samadukha sukham, who is able to see, who's the same in joy and sorrow, who's a dhira, who's a purusha, who's a person that doesn't get disturbed, na vyatayanti, doesn't get disturbed by all of these dvandvas or dualities, who's the same in pleasure and pain, who's a dhira, that person, amritatvaya kalpate, they alone are fit for immortality. So, O chief among men, that firm man whom surely these afflict not, to whom pleasure and pain are the same, is fit for realizing immortality of the self. So when I am able to practice titiksha, I gain this quality. I gain this quality of samatva. Samatva means I'm able to be the same in pleasure and pain. And that samatva makes me what is called adhira. Dhira. This word will come again and again in the Bhagavad Gita, comes also in Kathopanishad. And when I become a dhira, I am eligible for immortality, or what we call moksha. Amritatvam here is moksha. So how do I gain this sameness of mind? How do I practically achieve that? So the first I already mentioned to you. The first is, we see it as our karma phala. That whatever is happening to me and happening to this world right here and right now is our karma phala. It is something that we all have to go through because it's the total thoughts, total actions, totality all together. And this is what's happening. And therefore, if I understand that this is what is happening to me because of this, my individual actions and thoughts and total actions and thoughts, which I am a part of, then I am accepting of the situation. And I can be at ease because I know that this is what is to happen. This is part of it. The second point is, instead of seeing something as good or bad, instead of seeing something as joy or sorrow, if you and I can just learn to see something as growth, that will take us a long way. It's not that this experience is a good experience and that experience is a bad experience. I had a bad day. This was not a good thing. Good, bad, good, bad. And we keep judging things like this. We keep labeling things like this. But instead, if you and I just say, wow, this experience is growth, and this is what I learned from it. So it takes away whether it was a high or low, but what it shows is every step we are evolving. So no matter what the experience is, we are growing. And that becomes the main focus. And that person who sees every experience just as growth, that person can be dhira or can be same, whether in joy, whether in sorrow. Third is that it might not be what we think it is. Now, I know you all remember the story in Mahabharata, right? The story in Mahabharata where Ganga Mata was putting the babies in the river. Do you remember this? And Shantanu was just distraught. He said, how can you put our babies in the water? How can every time a baby is born, you're putting in the water? And he was not allowed to ask the first few times, if you remember. Then after that, he asked. The 8th one, he couldn't take it. And Ganga Mata said, do you know, when I put the babies in the water, I am freeing them from a curse that they had. These were the Vasus, and they were cursed because they stole that cow from the Rishi. And because they stole, they were cursed. And therefore, they asked me to release them from the curse as soon as they are born in this mortal world. And so by me putting them in the water, I was freeing them. So something that looks like it's so bad, you know, it could actually be good if we're looking at it in those terms. So it's very hard to judge. We never really know because we don't know the overall picture of the world. The 4th point is when the mind is in something higher, much higher, then do joy and sorrow, do experiences of the world really matter so much? For one whose mind is soaked in God, they are lost in God. They are absolutely lost in God. That this experience of joy and sorrow, where does it compare to the experience of God, realization? That is a very high thing. But even if somebody is also, their mind may not be in God, but maybe in some goal that they've set for themselves. If it's in that, then it's so easy to be equanimous in joy and sorrow because their mind is not in this world. So therefore, it says here, the one who is able to see, to be same in joy and sorrow. And I've shared with you how. So number 1, either see it as karma phala, the total thing that we all have to go through. 2 is that we just see it as growth. It's not good or bad, it's growth. 3 is it might not be what it seems. Take a look at the bigger picture. And 4, when the mind is in something higher, then it's so easy to just be even. And for this person, they are fit for immortality. And Arjuna, you are not Purusha, you're Purusha Shabha. You're the best of the Purushas. So I have no doubt that you are fit for immortality. But the question is there something deeper to this? There is. It's not only for somebody who is same in joy and sorrow, but for someone whom joy and sorrow are the same. That's a very beautiful thought, okay? I'm going to repeat it. It's not for someone only who's the same in joy and sorrow, but for whom joy and sorrow are the same. What do you mean? Let us read verse number 16 and then we will just explore it a little bit. Verse 16. Nasato vidyate bhavaha na bhavo vidyate sataha ubhayorapi drishtontaha tvanayostattvadarshibhihi. Nasato vidyate bhavaha na bhavo vidyate sataha ubhayorapi drishtontaha tvanayostattvadarshibhihi. So we will just see very slight meaning of this verse and then we will take up more next week. But what it says here, oh, listen, Arjuna. First, asataha. Asataha means that which is unreal. Na vidyate bhavaha. That which is unreal does not have any existence or being. Asataha na vidyate bhavaha. Sataha abhavaha na vidyate. And that which is real has no non-existence or has no absence. And ubhayoho api drishtaha antaha. Of the two, the one who has drishta antaha, the one who has seen the final truth, tu anayoho tattvadarshidihi. The final truth of these two are known by tattvadarshidihi, by the knowers of the truth. The unreal has no being. There is no non-being of the real. The truth about both of these has been seen by the knowers of the truth. So what does it mean? Here he says, listen, before I told you joy and sorrow are anitya, they're temporary, so therefore endure them, titiksha. But now I'm telling you, joy and sorrow are actually unreal. They're unreal. You can see joy and sorrow as the same because joy and sorrow are both unreal. How are they different? They're both unreal. What do you mean that they're both unreal? Because that which is unreal, asataha, that unreal has no existence. What do you mean? Does joy and sorrow, do they not have any existence? Where do joy and sorrow exist? Just think about it. There's this beautiful verse in Atma Bodha, which says, raga, dvesha, this attachment, aversion, joy and sorrow. Where do they exist? They exist in the mind. How do we know? Just think about it. When we are awake, we feel joy and sorrow. We feel joy and sorrow. We go through ups and downs. We feel them so incredibly strongly. When we are sleeping, do we feel joy and sorrow? Do we feel it? No. When we are sleeping, is the mind present? No, it is not. So what does this show us? When we are awake, which is when the mind is present, is when we feel joy and sorrow. When we are sleeping, when the mind is absent, is when we do not feel joy and sorrow. And therefore, that joy and sorrow, number one, is temporary. That feeling, it's an emotion. It's an emotion which is temporary because it's not there when I'm sleeping. It's not there when I'm sleeping. Number two, that emotion of joy and sorrow, it belongs to the mind. It does not belong to Atma or the self. So when we say someone who's the same in joy and sorrow, very good. But someone for whom joy and sorrow are the same, that's excellent. Because to that person, joy and sorrow is just an emotion. That joy and sorrow is not only temporary, it's unreal. Because it does not exist all the time. And that joy and sorrow, which is unreal, does not exist all the time, that joy and sorrow belongs to the mind. And it does not belong to the true self or Atma. And therefore, one can see them as the same, which is unreal. Asataha na vidyate bhavaha. That which is unreal, it doesn't have existence. And that existence means existence all throughout. That existence means changeless existence. If it doesn't have that, it's unreal. And therefore, Arjuna, focus your mind now on the highest. Now, what is Sat? We have seen now what is Asat. What is Sat? What is that highest, which Arjuna is to move or shift his attention to? That we will see next week. Okay? So what we have done today is, I'll just recap so that we all are on the same page. We know Arjuna's issue is delusion, and that's because of ignorance, and Lord Krishna gives him knowledge. Lord Krishna tells him that Atma is eternal. Why do we say it's eternal? It's eternal because it's changeless. It's always been there throughout all of the changes in my entire life. It's been changeless. What if I'm not able to get this knowledge? What if I'm not able to understand this fully? How do I deal with these ups and downs of life? Titiksha, endure it, endure it. It is born from the contact of the sense organs with the sense objects. It's bound to happen, these dualities. Endure it. Endure it without sweating the small stuff and trying to fix everything that comes in our way. Endure it without complaining. Endure it without worrying. Endure it cheerfully. See it as growth. Because anyway, it's going to be temporary. It's going to come and go. So what's the big deal? Why should I practice Tiksha? Because the one who practices Tiksha develops this ability to be sama, to be same in joy and sorrow. And that person who can be same in joy and sorrow, that person is fit for immortality. How do I do that? Accept everything as our karma phala, see it as growth, look at the big picture of things. If we're able to do all of these things, and if we're able to keep our mind in something higher, then we can be same in joy and sorrow. But is there something deeper than that? Yes. Something deeper than that is for the one to whom joy and sorrow are the same. What do we mean by that? Joy and sorrow are just emotions. They're emotions that are not there all the time. And therefore they are asat. Because they are not only temporary, but they are asat, they are unreal. They have no constant existence. They have no substantial existence because they depend on the mind and not on Atma. They exist in the mind and not on Atma. And therefore, Arjuna, please, please focus on reality. Because when we are focused on what's real, then it becomes easier to live and more joyful to be. Okay, so I will just make two announcements. I'll say the closing prayer, and then I'll make two announcements, and then if anyone has questions, you can send to me. Okay. Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om.